My name is Eric, I'm 29, and until last year, I believed I understood what family meant, not the Hallmark version. But the kind you structure your life around, even if it means carrying more than your fair share of the burden. I've always been the quiet type, the dependable son, the one who sends flowers on birthdays and fixes problems when nobody else even notices they exist. But I didn't grow up thinking I'd be the backbone of a family that consistently made me feel expendable. That reality came slowly, almost silently, like under the floorboards you don't see until everything collapses. Growing up, I was the middle child. My older brother Adam was the golden son, varsity football star, charismatic, always surrounded by admirers. My younger sister Mia was the princess from the day she was born. And me, I was the one who earned B+ grades and was told I wasn't reaching my potential. I didn't mind much. I kept quiet, earned a scholarship, moved out, and eventually built my own small IT firm that by some miracle succeeded after 3 exhausting years of ramen, 16-hour days, and getting rejected by every investor I pitched to. The strange thing is, when I struggled, they stayed silent. But when success came, that's when I became family again. It began small. My dad asked if I could help cover Adam's car payments just until he got promoted. Then came Mia's private university fees, because the financial aid didn't cover enough. My mother needed money for roof repairs, then the heating system, then the kitchen remodel she always dreamed of. And suddenly I was supporting 3 households and still receiving texts like, "Can you Venmo me for groceries?" At first I didn't mind. I was thankful I could assist. I even convinced myself I was building something, a legacy perhaps. I believed one day I could look back and say I improved life for the people I loved. But something about how they treated it, like it was owed, like I wasn't doing anything extraordinary, began eating at me. Last Thanksgiving was the breaking point. I hosted not to flaunt, but because I finally had a home large enough to fit everyone. I arranged catering, cleaning, set up a fire pit in the backyard. Nobody offered to help, not even with the dishes. Adam gave a toast halfway through, speaking about how fortunate we are to have each other, and how family always delivers, never once acknowledging that I had paid for everything. Mia brought her new boyfriend and barely looked up from her phone. And my dad, he spent the entire evening reminiscing about how life was harder in his time, and how kids today have it easy. I swallowed it all with a smile, but inside I was already withdrawing. Then came the night that broke everything. It was a random Tuesday, maybe 2 months later. I had just finished a long meeting and returned home to a voicemail from my father. His tone was curt, weary, and sharp in the way only dads can be. He said, "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything worth remembering. If you had pride, you'd stop acting like we owe you something and just leave." It shocked me. For a moment, I thought I misheard it. So I replayed it. "All you do is take." I didn't shout. I didn't call back. I just stared at the message for a long moment, then walked to the window and looked out at the city lights I once adored. Something inside me gave way quietly, like an old hinge snapping under strain. I packed a bag that night and left. No dramatic farewell. No announcement. I even told my assistant to pause all outgoing transfers linked to family accounts. Just a clean, silent departure. 3 days passed, then a week, complete silence. No calls, no texts. It took nearly a month for them to notice. Mia was first. She called me late one Friday night, her voice shaky. "Eric, hey, I just logged into the school portal and my tuition didn't process this month. Did something happen with the account?" I could sense the panic she was trying to hide. That false, casual tone you use when you're attempting not to sound needy. I replied with a single text. "Thought I never gave this family anything." No follow-up, no clarification, just that. She didn't reply, but within the hour, I had 4 missed calls from my mother, 2 from Adam, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize. The voicemail from my father. Ironic in a grim way. "Eric, we need to speak. Whatever this little stunt is, it's not amusing. Your sister's future is at stake. No apology, only demands." That same old tone that said, "You owe us." That weekend, I flew to Denver. I'd never been, but I needed somewhere distant enough to feel like I'd left orbit. I stayed in a small Airbnb overlooking the mountains, slept deeper than I had in years, and for the first time in ages, I didn't check my email. I didn't open any messages. I let the world turn without me. And back home, that's when it all began unraveling. Mia's school sent a notice of pending withdrawal due to non-payment. Adam's car, still unpaid, was seized. My parents' mortgage payment bounced. And suddenly, the foundation they built on my silence shattered wide open. They began contacting extended family, sharing their version of events, how I cut them off without warning and abandoned my duties. But the truth is, you can't rewrite a story when too many people already know facts. And a few of my cousins, they knew. They'd witnessed the pattern for years. I got a message from one of them, Emma, my mother's niece. She said, "I've always respected how patient you are, but I'm glad you finally stopped being their safety net." That message hit harder than I anticipated, because the truth is, I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. But once you remove the thing they use to control you, once they realize they need you more than you ever needed them, that's when the unraveling begins. I spent a week in Denver, mostly doing nothing. I'd walk to a small coffee shop near the Airbnb every morning, journal for a bit, then wander downtown just to remind myself what uninterrupted silence felt like. No buzzing phone, no obligations, no one asking, "Can you just do one more favor?" It felt strange at first how alien that calm seemed. Like I had to unlearn the habit of bracing for someone else's disappointment. By the second week, I'd rented a car and driven out to Boulder. I hiked alone, something I'd always wanted to do but never managed because every time I planned a trip, someone in the family required a bailout, a broken AC, a late credit card. Mia once called me from a resort in Cancun saying she lost her wallet and needed me to wire emergency cash. That memory popped into my mind as I stood at the edge of a cliff trail, cutting through my jacket. The whole valley stretched out beneath me. I laughed aloud. Really laughed. It echoed off the rocks. It took 3 full weeks before my mom broke the silence with something beyond passive-aggressive voicemails. She emailed me. The subject line read, "We need you to return home." No greeting. Just a lengthy block of text that began with, "I don't know what's come over you," and spiraled into, "Your father is livid." Then, "We've done so much for you," and ended with, "Family never abandons family." I stared at it for ages. Family never abandons family, except they did. Every time they treated me like a debit card with a pulse. Every forgotten birthday. Every time they took funds from me without gratitude. Every holiday where I lingered in the background while Adam gave speeches and Mia was showered in gifts. They didn't call it abandonment. They called it tradition. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to my lawyer, Daniel, who had helped me establish a trust fund years ago. I told him to start transferring the remaining tuition payments to a scholarship program for first-generation college students. The ones who genuinely needed help. The ones who wouldn't mock me behind my back while draining my account. I also asked him to investigate who was listed on the deed for the lake house. The one my parents enjoyed each summer, paid for entirely by me under the false promise that it would be a shared family asset. Turns out my name was still on the documents, so I made a choice that Sunday morning. I booked a flight back home, not to reconcile, not out of guilt, but to gather receipts. I didn't tell anyone I was arriving. I landed just past noon, picked up a rental car, and drove directly to the house. The same house I helped restore when Dad threatened to sell it unless someone paid for the water damage repairs. It looked the same, familiar, and artificial, like a movie set designed to feel like home. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Adam's old truck parked outside. I assumed he moved back in after the repossession. I didn't knock. I entered with the spare key my mom had forgotten I possessed. The moment I stepped into the living room, I heard voices. He's being melodramatic. Adam was saying he'll return crawling once he gets over himself. Mia's voice followed softer. I just don't understand why he's doing this. I mean, it's not that much money to him, right? My dad muttered something I couldn't quite catch. Then loud and distinct. Eric's always been the weakest, hiding behind his computer, pretending money makes him important. I stood in the hallway unseen as they continued dismantling me like I wasn't the reason the lights stayed on. I didn't cry. I didn't burst in. I didn't even feel rage, just validation. They never acknowledged me, not truly. I stepped back quietly and drove to the lake house. I entered through the front door, took a long look at the open-plan kitchen, the wall of family photographs that omitted a single one of me, and began taking pictures for the real estate listing. By nightfall, my lawyer had everything required to commence the sale. That was Saturday. On Monday, I sent one last message to the family group chat. I wrote, "I never gave this family anything. So I'm finally offering what you've always acted like you wanted, distance. No more tuition, no more vehicle payments, no more roof maintenance. Sell your own memories. I'm done." I left the chat and blocked them entirely. I assumed that would be the conclusion. But what I didn't realize was how deeply their reliance had grown and how quickly it would collapse once I severed every connection. Because within days, Mia faced expulsion. Adam fired after missing too many shifts trying to make sense of things. My parents, let's just say their bank called with questions about a mortgage they couldn't sustain. And me? Well, I was already halfway to the airport for another trip. This time, Tokyo first class, no guilt, no ties. But the real twist, what occurred the next time they tried to return. I was somewhere over the Pacific when my phone finally caught up with the chaos I had left behind. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize, friends of Mia presumably, or someone sent to speak to me for my family's sake. There were texts from my dad that seemed to begin as threats, but quickly turned into pleading fragments like, "We didn't mean it that way," and "You're still our son." That one made me smirk. I ignored every voicemail. Didn't open a single attachment. I just stared at the notifications piled up like a muted slideshow of distress. It's ironic how people who insisted you gave nothing suddenly tally up every sacrifice once it vanishes. Tokyo was exactly what I craved. Pristine, quiet, untraceable. I roamed temples and neon-soaked arcades. Allowed my thoughts to breathe in ways I hadn't realized I'd forgotten. No burden pressing on my shoulders. No surprise crises. For the first time ever, I was simply myself. Not the fallback option. Not the family's repairman. 2 weeks into my journey, I unblocked only one person, Emma, my cousin. She had sent a single message through the whole storm. No begging, no confrontation, just, "When you're ready to speak, I'll be here to listen." I met her after I returned. We settled in a cafe near her apartment, and she brought her laptop. "I want to show you something," she said, pushing it toward me. It was a Reddit thread of all places. Mia had posted anonymously requesting financial support to stay in school after an unforeseen family crisis. She painted a narrative casting me as the unstable one, claimed I abandoned the family without cause, suggested I was having a breakdown. Strangers were donating money. Emma looked at me, lips pressed tight. "She's raised nearly $6,000 so far. Thought you should know." I stared at the screen, a knot twisting in my stomach that wasn't anger, but sorrow. There it was again. That same old story, rewritten to fit the victim's role. Recalled long evenings aiding Mom prepare for festive meals. Washing plates while she pretended not to notice Dad arguing in another room. Chuckling with Emma about charred crusts and raw roasts. Now it was simply a kitchen, a cube of walls, and abandoned effort. A picture remained lying upon the counter. One of our whole family taken 2 Christmases earlier at my own expense. I remembered covering the photographer's fee, the coordinated outfits they demanded, and how they erased me when they uploaded it online. I lifted the picture, studied it for a long while, then placed it face downward. By midday, several cars began arriving nearby, a few serious bidders, some inquiring neighbors, and eventually my relatives. They pulled in using Dad's old Chevy, jammed together like some warped family excursion. Mia stepped out first. Her expression was blotchy, red-ringed eyes behind oversized shades. Adam followed closely, frowning, clearly present only to act protector. Then my parents appeared. Mom seemed worn thin, a decade older than the last time I had encountered her. Dad. Still, he strode as though he owned the earth. He noticed me immediately. "Eric," he shouted softly, voice tense and sharp. "We must speak this instant." I didn't move. He advanced quickly. Adam stood behind him like a dark shadow. "You're seriously doing this?" Dad spoke. "You're going to shame your own kin." Over what precisely? Some imagined offense. I fixed him with my gaze for the first time in ages. "It's not offense," I said calmly. "It's a cycle, and it ends right now." "You ungrateful brat," he began, but I raised my palm. "Stop. Just stop." Mia approached them then, her voice trembling. "I'm about to lose my scholarship because of this. I already dropped 2 classes. Why are you doing this against us?" I turned toward her. "I covered your first 3 years. Each tuition bill, every single textbook. You never expressed thanks, not once. Instead, you let them persuade you I was the cause." "I didn't," she replied. "You posted online claiming I was unstable Ice Age, showing my phone. You deceived strangers for cash. And now you demand pity." Her expression fell apart. Mom finally responded. Her tone was firm, Eric. "Families don't behave this way toward each other." "No," I said, "families don't take like this. You stole everything, my time, my money, my trust. And when I stopped giving, you labeled me selfish." The auctioneer's tone cut through then, crisp and professional. "We'll start the auction within 5 minutes." Dad glanced around, suddenly unsure of himself. "You cannot do this. You wouldn't even own this house if not for us." "You're correct," I said. "Therefore, I'm reclaiming it." They remained frozen, rooted in the driveway, powerless for the first time ever, and I departed. The house sold within 1 hour. A retired couple traveling from elsewhere, seeking a home near their grandchildren. They paid completely. They signed the documents, gave Daniel the keys, and never glanced backward. 3 weeks later, the moving truck arrived. My parents resisted, argued they had rights, but the court order was explicit. They had 30 days from sale date. No exceptions. They barely packed possessions, only took what they could, and abandoned the rest in heaps. Years of accumulation. Boxes of trophies, broken gadgets, forsaken keepsakes. One of the movers discovered a diary of mine hidden in a box marked junk. It was from my high school days. I skimmed through it. Every page contained ambitions. Enter college, launch a company, purchase a house, care for my family. Strange how none of those dreams turned out like I imagined they would. I gave away the furniture, discarded the rest. Emma assisted me closing the estate. She remained the only one who stayed impartial through everything and the only one I trusted. When it concluded, she embraced me for a long while. "You made the right decision," she murmured. "Even if it doesn't feel that way yet." And she was correct. It didn't feel right. Not in usual terms. There was no grand victory, no final showdown with slow applauding cheers, only silence, a piercing, echoing silence that slowly softened into peace. I relocated shortly afterwards. Purchased a loft in another city. Smaller, simpler, yet mine, no secret debts, no shame. The calls eventually ceased. The emails stopped, and in time, even resentment ebbed. I didn't resent them. I merely disconnected, like finally cutting the last strand of a worn rope that had pulled me under for countless years. One night, I sat on my balcony, drinking tea, observing lights flicker in buildings opposite the street. I reflected on that last Thanksgiving, about the toast Adam offered, about how they all smiled like actors in an advertisement, utterly unaware that the bond holding them together was cracking. And I understood something. They were never truly a family. They were rather a system, a structure that only functioned so long as I stayed silent, stayed useful, remained small. And now they must learn how to stand without me. I received a message months later, an email from Mia. I don't expect an answer. I simply wish to say I understand now and I'm sorry. I read it twice, then once again, and then archived it. Not out of anger, but because I no longer needed closure from them. I already found it within myself. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.